In October of 2011, Moira Young of the famed British newspaper The Guardian wrote an article asking, "Why is dystopia so appealing to young adults?" The ultimate definitive answer to that question was clearly not discovered here, as 6 years later, in 2017, NPR's website published a similar article by Alyssa Nadworny, entitled "Why Teens Find the End of the World So Appealing." That same year, you could also find articles like The New Yorker's "A Golden Age for Dystopian Fiction," and Wired's "The Real Reason Dystopian Fiction is Roaring Back." These mentioned are just four of numerous articles, editorials, and think pieces published throughout the 2010s that sought to get to the bottom of dystopian fiction's dominance of the bestseller lists, especially in the young adult market. The various theories are not surprising. Some theorize teens enjoyed reading dystopian fiction because stories of characters lost in a world they couldn't understand mirrored the social confusion teenagers tend to feel during their formative years. Some felt the young readers might see parallels between the dystopian worlds featured in the stories and the excessively negative news cycle of the real world that they were only now starting to pay attention to. And, of course, some figured that maybe these readers just like the genre because it's fun. Whatever the case, the sheer amount of discussion regarding this matter, and obviously the sheer number of extremely successful books and series that prompted it, proved that dystopian fiction was a force to be reckoned with throughout the decade. Of course, dystopian and post-apocalyptic fiction was not necessarily new to the young reader world in the 2010s. Classic books like Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time from 1962 and Lois Lowry's The Giver from 1993 are just two examples that show stories like these have long been a staple of the YA market. And dystopian fiction in general has been a popular literary subgenre for a long time, with some tracing its origins back to the French Revolution, with authors crafting tales responding to their concerns about the sort of dictatorships they feared would arise in the wake of the so-called utopian societies promised by government leaders. While H.G. Wells' 1895 novel The Time Machine is sometimes considered an early prototype of the genre, it really came to prominence in the 20th century. Eugene Zamyatin's 1924 Russian novel We, E.M. Forster's 1928 short story The Machine Stops, and Aldous Huxley's 1932 novel Brave New World are considered significant progenitors of modern technological dystopian fiction, works generally focused on totalitarian states and the distressing struggles of those forced to live within them. As the 20th century continued and gave way to the 21st century, post-apocalyptic and dystopian fiction continued to be a popular fixture of both the page and screen, as the future totalitarian societies, or devastated wastelands, depicted in the tales were designed to represent analogous representations of modern-day concerns about pollution, climate change, and global warming, pandemics, and distressing political movements. But while books like George Orwell's 1984 and Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale are certainly just two examples of an extremely prolific genre, there's no doubt that, as The Guardian and NPR took note of, dystopian fiction especially took hold of the young adult literary market during the late aughts and throughout the 2010s, with series like Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games, Veronica Roth's Divergent, Scott Westerfeld's Uglies, and James Dasher's The Maze Runner dominating the sales charts. Whatever the true reasons for this might be, Hollywood definitely took notice, and a number of these increasingly popular tales were purchased and adapted for the big screen, where many of them enjoyed similar success to that they had enjoyed in the book world, while many others did not. The year is 2018, and 20th Century Fox is ready to launch the next big cinematic franchise adaptation of a popular YA dystopian fiction series, with The Darkest Minds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Welcome once again to Failure to Franchise, the show dedicated to some of Hollywood's most infamous mistakes, missteps, and misfires. This is Trev with blue eyes, so I can move shit with my mind.
And I'm Chris with brown eyes, so I'm full of shit. And Trev is currently levitating me as we speak.
Ah, yes. Finally, the moment I've been waiting for, to just exert all my full power over you.
That sounds sexual. I don't know if I like that. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, no.
Happy Pride Month.
We won't get there yet. So this is the third installment of this year's edition of Summer Surprise, where we allowed an online randomizer to choose our movies for us. And I think in this case that's probably a good thing, because I don't know. Well, I don't mean good thing in the sense of like that we were excited to watch this movie, but I think that's the exact point I'm making here. I don't think this is one we necessarily would have come around to. Like on our own volition, maybe just because I think it's a movie that, even though it was in our list, I have to assume both of us just kept forgetting this movie existed.
Yes.
And it was in our list. But it is a return to a well-worn genre and type of movie for us that we haven't done in a bit, but it's obviously a little bit of the bane of our existence, but also is very important because it's like 10 to 20% of our overall output.
Yeah.
And that is the YA dystopian thriller. So today we are looking at 2018's The Darkest Minds. Chris, do you want to tell us a little bit about this particular YA adventure?
For sure. It is directed by Jennifer Nelson. She was primarily an animation background. She actually directed Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3. I like those movies, by the way. She's currently the supervising director on Love, Death, and Robots, which the newest season, I think, too, the season 3. The film was written by Chad Hoge. He, again, primarily TV background. He created Wayward Pines. I am not familiar with that show. I don't know if you are, Trev. You're more...
I didn't watch it, but I mean, I remember it looking like just one of those, hey, look, it's a new, like, Lost X-Files,
Yeah.
kind of mystery thing. I think it stretched itself out to, like, 2 seasons, if memory serves. I also just want to quickly bring up that I think it's interesting that you would pronounce his name Chad Hoge. You wouldn't say Hodge. Is this a Canadian thing again?
I'm unsure why I said that way as well. I
almost said, the bat, we are acknowledging that Chris's brain is broke for this recording. So.
Hey, I did say I'm coming off a cold. Okay, so give me a break. But yeah, I definitely was like, should I just redo that? No, whatever. We'll do it live. The Darkest Minds is based off novels of the same name by Alexandra Bracken. She had 3 novels and 3 novellas in the series dating back to 2012. The budget of the film is $34 million. Domestically, it made $12.7 million. And worldwide, it made a staggering $41.1 million. So this was a major bomb.
Yeah, that's what they call a bad box office performance,
yes.
In case anyone's wondering. That's bad.
Yeah.
And as I said, I think it's also just one of those movies... So you and I are both fans of, not to like pimp out another movie podcast, but you and I are both fans of the film podcast Blank Check, which is maybe my favorite movie podcast. And I know a concept they often talk about that you and I like to parrot and kind of feed off of is movies that don't exist. And obviously, a lot of movies are made like every year, and obviously many are made for like super low budgets. They're just like kind of dumped into streaming services or thrown on Amazon Prime. Maybe some of them are maybe just like tax shelters. There's a lot of movies that get made that nobody will ever know about. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about movies that don't exist. They're more fascinated by movies that have some legit stars in them. Had like a full studio behind them, got a pretty legit theatrical release, and yet nobody talks about them at all anymore. Mm-hmm. And I would argue, now granted, this is not necessarily our go-to genre. We're not necessarily the target audience for this. But I think you and I are both attuned to pop culture enough to at least still, have our toes somewhat in that world.
Definitely.
And I would argue this was one that just, the box office receipts kind of speak for themselves, but I would say today this is just a forgotten movie.
Well, I was going to ask you off the top, like, let's talk a little bit about our relationship with the YA genre. Like, for this podcast, we've actually talked about quite a few at this point. Go back into your podcast app and check it out. There's Mortal Engines, there's I Am Number 4, there's a bunch of other stuff. And as forgettable as I'm forgetting right now. But like my relationship with the YA genre is minimum to say the least. I know, Trev, you moonlight at a bookstore, so used to, and I know you are at least a little bit more attuned to what's coming out or what's big and what's popular. So I did want to ask you, this title, like, did this ever cross your path?
It's funny because once we were like looking into this movie, I recognized the name of the author more than I do the name of the series or this particular first book or movie. Okay. Like Darkest Minds really did not bring like any kind of recognition. In fact, I kept thinking, what was that movie? I think it's like an Emil Hirsch movie where there's like aliens that they can sense, they're like invisible, but they can put light bulbs up. Do you know what I'm talking about? It takes place in Russia. I could swear that movie was called Darkest Minds, and there was like a part of me that even thought that's what, when the randomizer came up, I thought maybe that's what this was. That's going to drive me crazy now. We should probably look that up during the episode. But maybe there is another movie called that.
Hey listeners, it's Chris here, just dropping in. The movie that Trev is talking about is The Darkest Hour from 2011. Sounds like we might have to talk about this movie one day because it does set up a sequel. So stay tuned. Back to the show.
Yeah, but then Alexandra Bracken, or that's it, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bracken. That name definitely, like, so I think I probably do see this series all the time, but it just doesn't, like, connect to me. And that is because, as you said, when you work in a bookstore, and I started working in bookstores, worked at Borders first and then Barnes & Noble, which are the two, like, big, North American, or at least American book chains. I don't know if you've got some crazy books, or something like that in Canada,
They're just dripping with maple syrup as you turn the pages.
Yeah. But those are the two big chains. I've worked at both of them, and I started working at Borders back in 2007. So that was like right when Twilight was hitting. Mm. And so, obviously Harry Potter was already a thing. That starts in the late 90s and early 2000s. Or the first movie, I believe, is 2001, correct? The first Harry Potter movie.
Correct.
But the YA, the YA boom as we would know it, I think can be credited to Twilight. And I was there for like all of that, man. I've lived through shit you wouldn't believe. Midnight releases of Twilight and the later Harry Potter books. So I've seen kind of all of these YA series come and often go, but I've also seen the ones that just kind of do stick around, like for whatever you say about Twilight or Hunger Games or Divergent. And like there's even some of those, there's varying levels of success in the movie world, but all of those like still sell as books. Those are still constantly on the shelf. They're still constantly coming off of the shelf. And there's been so many other series because it's not, I don't know, anything goes in waves, but I think in general the YA literary market has been pretty consistently popular.
Right.
Since the big Twilight boom. You just see different kind of iterations of it. There was a time after Twilight where obviously there was a lot of vampire stuff, so you also had the Vampire Diaries. Everyone tried to latch onto that. Then there was a brief moment where angels were like the big thing. They're like, maybe girls will find angels hot now. And then, in the wake of Hunger Games, which we can talk about with this one, you do get a lot of this like dystopian kind of, society has collapsed, and what would teenagers be up to in that world? And that's where like Maze Runner and Divergent falls in. So you see these like different, kind of waves come and different subgenres within the overall YA genre. Now I'm going to be clear, I am not a snob about YA lit at all. In fact, I do read YA books. First of all, they're much faster to read. So if you want to read a lot of books in a year, YA is a good option. And I'll say, me, I'm a huge horror fan.
Yeah.
And YA horror, I think, is actually having like an awesome boom right now. There's tons of great YA horror stuff. And I really quite enjoyed the Hunger Game books. I've read some other series and things that I really, there was one called, and actually we're going to get to this actually now that I think about it. But if you remember like City of Ember is like a series that they made one movie of. Yeah, I actually read that series and enjoyed it. So yeah, I've dipped my toes into that pool as well. And I think I don't like when people dismiss YA either for YA readers or even for adult readers. I think you should read whatever the hell you want, and we see a lot of adults still buy YA books, and that's cool because they're fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The movies. I want to let you talk here in a moment too. So just cut me off if I'm going too long. But in terms of like the YA movie,
you never go off on monologues, Trev.
the way the YA is, in terms of the YA movie boom, I do want to read some titles because I think this is important to talk about with this film. All right. So as I said, I had these written down actually. Twilight. The first Twilight film was 2008. I Am Number 4, a movie we covered on the show, was 2011. Mortal Instruments, another movie we covered, was 2013. The first Hunger Games was 2012, so the year before that. And then both the first Divergent and the first Maze Runner are both 2014. So now within there, you have some that were successful, and you have some that will be or have been covered on our show. So obviously different levels of success there. Mm-hmm. But I think I wanted to point out how, and that's just a handful, right? I could throw more in. But I wanted to point out...
Well, that was a short amount of time, too. Like, that's the thing. That was just a handful,
so that's the point I'm making, is that in terms of the movies, I don't know, maybe because movies do just operate on a different level than books and everything. I think like anybody else, I just, first of all, I was a little older when these were all coming out. I was kind of interested in some of them and not interested in others. But yeah, I kind of felt very burnt out by this kind of movie very quickly. So that's the point I was trying to get to. And I think, without maybe already getting to kind of the point here, but I think this movie, no matter what else we're going to say about it, certainly I think by the time it came out, it was a victim of that. This was too little, too late, I think.
Yes, and we usually save what we're gonna say till a little bit later, and about 20 minutes from now we'll talk exactly like what our true feelings of the movie are. But I think, yes, this movie is maybe the last. I don't know, what's the last hurrah?
Yeah, the last gasp of a dying genre.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely, and that's kind of where I come from with YA stuff. Like I mean, I've never watched so much YA in my life that I have with this podcast. So there's that. It is a subgenre that has never really appealed to me, but not in the sense like you're saying, like I'm too good for it or whatnot. It's just I have never really been into it, and that's what it is, right? And I'm too busy rewatching the same movie over and over and over and over again, as Trev likes to point out. Yeah, I typically felt when I watched like Hunger Games or Divergent or whatnot, like I'll see maybe like Maze Runner. I usually see the first movie. And even of the really super successful ones, I'll see the first and maybe I'll dabble into the second. I typically get dragged along to the first movie, or like I know my brother had really recommended, he loved the Hunger Games when that was out. And I guess Hunger Games is coming back in a spin-off form theatrically.
Prequel, yeah.
A prequel, so who knows? We might have to talk about that one day. We don't know. But yeah, the YA is definitely not something that I seek out, but I 100% understand and respect the audience for, And there is some good stuff. Like, again, I really loved the Hunger Games one, and I think I saw the second one, Catching Fire, and yeah, and I'm a Harry Potter fan, but that was more in the infancy of this kind of new trend. So, yeah, that's kind of mine. I don't have as lengthy as a take as Trev, unfortunately.
And I think something you said where you said like it's not because you're coming down or whatever, but you said it's just not your thing, and that's totally valid, because I think one thing you can say about this entire subgenre, and I think this is going to play a big part in our review, is this is a very trope heavy genre of films. And obviously that's true of anything, but I mean, like, when you hear me say I'm a horror fan, or someone says I'm an action fan, or someone says I'm a sci-fi fan, there's a lot of variety in that larger genre. When you and I are talking about YA, we should clarify too, just to be fair, there are different kinds of YA movies. There's YA like romance, and then YA thrillers, but I think we're really here talking about these kind of like YA sci-fi thrillers. They all are very, very similar. Yes. So if one doesn't connect to you, chances are the rest aren't going to either. And it's kind of, that is actually very telling. And, kudos to the ones like the Hunger Games that I think do rise above the crop a little bit and catch on in a larger sense, because they've got something else under the hood, but I think many of these are just dealing in well-worn territory. And so that's, you said, we don't want to say yet what we felt about this particular movie. I'm really trying to walk around that. My point is, whether this was going to be a 4-star movie or a 1-star movie, I don't think it mattered by the time it came out. I think the writing was on the wall for this one, that it came way, way too late in the cycle, and people were done with this. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with that Hunger Games prequel, because that cycle has all it's had its life, it's gone away, and now the question is, did they wait long enough for nostalgia to get it? Because that's the thing, anything can come back when you let it die for a bit, and I'm not, I fully expect all this stuff to come back around, but are they trying to do that too quickly with the Hunger Games? That's what I suspect. I think they might have gone, I think they should have waited like 5 more years before they did this prequel, but we'll see,
So the history with this film in particular goes back to September of 2014, when 20th Century Fox decides to buy the rights to Alexandra Bracken's series. And at the time, at the time, 20th Century Fox were the X-Men guys, right?
Yeah.
So they were
that was their big franchise. Yeah,
that was a big franchise, and they were all aboard the young people with powers, or just kind of mutant light, let's just say, at this point. And in the span of 2 years, they go to animation director Jennifer Nelson to direct the film. And like I said before, she's primarily in animation. So this is an interesting experiment that Hollywood does every once in a while. And like, remember when Andrew Stanton directed Wall-E? And then they were like, Disney was like, yo, we need this guy to make John Carter. And John Carter, for older F2F fans of ours, that was our first episode. And it doesn't exactly go to plan.
No, I mean, like, we think it worked.
Sure.
The rest of the world does not seem to agree with us.
No.
Yeah.
And it's strange, too, because especially when we get to this movie, Nelson is very anime inspired. Her movies, like I said, Kung Fu Panda 2 and 3, are quite frenetic. They're energetic. The set pieces are lavishly detailed and are quite fun. And The Darkest Minds doesn't quite go that route. And that's why I found this very strange up front. And it's weird because there was an interview here with Nelson prior to release, asking her of what inspires her and why she was so excited. And here she says she was just more excited to be on location and make a practical film with real sets and very little stage work and outdoors, because the animation process is very much you're in pre and post and during production at all times. Right?
Yeah.
Every single little bit can move around, right? So,
I actually totally understand that, thought. I mean, again, whether we're saying she was successful with this film or not, working in animation, that does mean you're just sitting in, a computer bank in a bunch of offices a lot. I'm sure it was exciting for her to just be making a movie and, be out in a field. So, yeah. I get that to a certain degree.
For sure. And then they start to cast the film. And this is where we're going to go back to the Hunger Games here, because they cast their main actress, Amandla Stenberg, as the lead role, Ruby Daly. And it's interesting because she was in Hunger Games. So obviously they're trying to do some name or face recognition. Am I crazy to not think that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Hunger Games made her a megastar, but I will say, I do remember that she has a small role in Hunger Games, but it's an important role. She plays Rue, the young girl who Katniss kind of befriends during the games and has a tragic ending, as most people in the games do.
Yeah.
And if you remember, she got a little bit more attention for a very. This just happens with everything now, but it was kind of new at the time. She got a little more attention for shitty reasons, because a lot of people got upset that Rue was being played by a black actress. Even though, the author of Hunger Games had to kind of step forward and be like, yeah, that's actually, that's how it was in the book too. So because people were assholes and idiots about it, that got a little bit more attention paid to that part. But I don't want to say that that's the only reason she was known. I think she actually, I am a huge fan of the first Hunger Games film. I think it's the best one in the series. And I do think she makes the most of that small role. So for it being a kind of a limited screen time thing, she did leave a mark on me as an audience member. So, but like I said, I don't think it made her a household name or anything.
No.
But I think she did well enough in that small role, and she did have a little bit of that YA world clout, I suppose.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then everybody else in the cast, I don't really know. We'll talk about them when we get into the review. But as Trev said earlier about getting maybe some star power involved, they go to Mandy Moore. Mm-hmm. And I say star power with a big asterisk, I guess. You know what I mean? She's more known at this point TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is Us is a huge hit at this point.
Mandy Moore is one of those celebrities, and there's a lot of them. I think we've probably certainly talked about this before, where everybody knows who she is. But I wouldn't say that makes them a huge star or famous. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Everyone knows Mandy Moore. And then I think when you say, hey, Mandy Moore, right? And they'll probably be like, yeah. And they're like, well, what do you know her from? And they're like, oh, well, she was in that one movie, right? I remember her in that thing. Yeah, what was the movie? And they're like, so obviously she had the music career first, and I don't know how much that's even because I do definitely think of her as an actress more now.
Yeah, same.
But she had the music career first, and then she's had like, she's never stopped working. She's not an unsuccessful actress. She's doing better than many, but she never has had. I would say maybe the Mandy Moore, squad is going to come down on us, but I would say other than like voicing Rapunzel in Tangled, I'd say she's never had like a big breakout star moment, and especially in movies. But as you said, she's doing very well on this. I think that just wrapped up, but she was doing very well there.
But she's had an interesting career too, because she goes back and forth from live action and voice work, and that honestly must be a dream. I mean, to be a working actress and not having to go to set all the time and making the money she makes. I mean, really, she's got the life at this point. Yeah,
and the other thing I'll say about her, and this isn't nothing. She does seem like a really fun, just good person. You know? I mean, you never know nowadays, but I like every time I've seen an interview with her, she always seems to have like a really good sense of humor. I bet you she's very pleasant to work with. That's the kind of sense I get from her.
Right.
And I think that can help. I think probably a lot of people work with her, want to work with her again, and recommend her. So, we don't like to shit on actors. That's one of our least favorite things. But even whether she's like the greatest actress in the world or anything, I think she's like well known enough and probably well liked enough that I think she's probably just going to keep consistently working. And it'll be interesting to see if there's ever like a moment where suddenly, like 55-year-old Mandy Moore in like 15 years or whatever suddenly have like a big like breakout, Oscar kind of performance. You never know, but
55-year-old Mandy Moore has to retire because they're not giving her any work. It's going to be all voice actor. Yeah. Well, I will say I just watched for the first time 47 Meters Down, the shark movie, one of many. But she was actually quite good in that, and I like that movie a lot. So 47
I
Meters
remember
Down.
thinking she was really good as like I loved her as like the mean girl in Saved, which is like the religious version of Mean Girls. You ever see that with Macaulay Culkin and Jenna Malone? That's a really fun movie, and she was kind of like the bitchy like ultra religious girl who tries to throw her like belief systems on everyone else. So yeah, I mean, I don't dislike Mandy Moore. I you know what, I would hang out with Mandy Moore. So if she's listening, I'm just throwing it out there.
Should we start talking about the movie at this point?
Probably.
Yeah.
If you can hear this, you're one of us. If you're one of us, you can find us.
Soon, there wouldn't be any kids anywhere. The government wasn't afraid of what happened to the ones that didn't make it. They were afraid of us. Because the ones that survived changed.
Ruby, you are very rare. Among the most powerful.
We know our time is near.
We're going to a place where kids can live together on the outside. The only people who would ever help us were us.
Whatever happens, don't stop!
For their safety and yours, please turn over your children.
I'm smart enough to know you're hiding something. And you're smart enough to be hiding it.
I just didn't want you to be afraid of me. The more that I try to control it, the more damage that I do.
I can show you how to use your strengths the way they're meant to be used. We can fight back.
We don't have to stay in darkness. We've survived all of this. I will fight for all of us.
A sudden disease kills over 90% of the world's children, leaving the survivors with unusual abilities. As a result, the government places survivors in a rehabilitation camp where they attempt to cure the children of their abilities, distinguishing them into 5 distinct color classes: green, superintelligence; blue, telekinesis; gold, controlling electricity; orange, mind control; and red, controlling fire. Ruby Daly is a survivor sent to the camp to be tested. She's an orange, hiding under the facade that she's a green, so not to be killed. With the help of Mandy Moore, Ruby escapes, joins up with other surviving kids, and thus the search for a safe haven begins. Will this be a walk to remember? Let's discuss.
I'm surprised you didn't say like they get tangled up in adventures.
That was the first draft.
I'll go first. Okay, this is the first time watch for both of us, right?
Yep.
Clearly, because I don't think either of us knew this movie existed until this. So yeah, I'll go first. And it'll be interesting to hear like how much you agree with me on this. I think I have a feeling you will. So we already just talked about in our intro about this idea that this movie came a little too late in this whole overall YA boom, and that's really going to color my comments here because I think this movie released in 2011, 2012 would already be kind of indistinguishable and not particularly memorable and just sort of another one of those. Coming in 2018, it's almost unforgivable how pedestrian, perfunctory, and uninspired this movie is. It's not like I was getting like angry and throwing things around my room watching this movie or anything, but I was... you were talking in your intro, and you already mentioned how you were kind of surprised to see that, this acclaimed animation director handled this movie because the visual sense, I think, is kind of really blah. I think everything about the movie has that, like, this is the kind of movie where you watch, and I try to put myself on the set, and I just think, was anybody involved in this movie at any point, above the line, below the line, was anybody actually excited to be making this movie? And it doesn't feel like it. This feels like a movie that is just all like obligation. The studio bought these rights. They had to make the movie. Everyone kind of got roped up into it. And I don't think anyone was like enjoying this movie. And I can't imagine anyone making it really believe this is going to start like the next big franchise, especially at this point, because it's all stuff you've seen before, done better. And the last thing I want to say about it, what really bothers me about this movie, and for this, I'll save some of this and I'll go back into that interview you mentioned with Jennifer Yu Nelson that was from the Thrillist, because she talks in there about some of the deeper meanings of this movie. But I think what really frustrated me about this movie is, to me, it's everything that this movie isn't, because this movie could be touching on a lot of very interesting real life social issues and concerns. It has like the right concept for that, and it doesn't really seem interested in doing all that. And I think what could have saved this movie was having a little bit more foresight and saying, maybe we should make this into an actual commentary about immigration, people getting put into camps, the way we treat, just youth in America in general, school shootings, the militarization of our youth. If this movie actually tried to touch on any of those, like if this was like a Paul Verhoeven movie, obviously it'd be better. But like with that kind of mentality, instead this movie, I think, has this thought that, oh, if we just like have this plot, that covers it, right? And then we'll just make like a generic superpower teen movie. And that's why it was very, very boring to me. So yeah, in other words, I didn't like it.
Yeah, this screams paint by numbers.
Yeah.
It feels like a Cliff Notes version of the book. I haven't read the book, but it definitely feels like you're saying there's concepts that they bring up half-assed, and they never go anywhere with them, right? So it just becomes, like you said, just boring and lacks the social commentary that it's trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost X-Men with minimal social commentary and zero spectacle. So it's like, well, what's the point? In our other YA movies, we've talked about how these films they rarely have a good ending. It's always like we'll get to that, right? It's always these other YA movies are always, we'll get to that later. We're not going to finish the movie here. We'll get it in part 2 and 3. Now, where this movie is different from those is that this movie fundamentally lacks a first act. There's no first act to this movie. And it just kind of starts, and it does my least favorite narrative cheat in the world, which is a fucking newsreel. I hate newsreels. They just did this with Jurassic World Dominion, which drove me crazy, to just be a little bit more topical right now. You know, in the beginning of Jurassic World Dominion, you were promised from the last movie that dinosaurs are running amok in the world, right? Which is a pretty crazy concept, which is like, oh my God, I can't wait to see that. That sounds unbelievable. Like how are the humans going to deal with this? Well, in 3 minutes, it does a newsreel that just kind of describes that they're just kind of a barely an inconvenience at this point. Mm-hmm. And in this movie, they have the concept that 90% of the children in the world are dead. And that concept is so remarkably just think about the movie Children of Men. You know, that movie, when they talk about how kids are not being born anymore, it shows you the world. You live in there. You live in the world with Clive Owen, and it truly is a dystopia. You know, people have lost hope. People are upset. People are depressed. There's violence in the streets. You know, it really feels like a lived-in world that is going into chaos because children can't be born. Now, in this movie, it's just empty fields. It's not populated. We don't know how people are dealing with this in the regular world. We don't know what the adults are dealing with. We don't know really anything that's going on in the world, because by 15 minutes into this movie, Trev, Ruby? Was it Ruby? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ruby, yeah.
Ruby is broken out of the camp by 15 minutes. And she was in the camp for 6 years. But you get no sense of it. You don't know what's happening or why do we care? Why is this such a heady topic? And I think it's lacking. The movie's lacking an edge to it. And it just kind of has a resounding thud to the concept. And like you said, it's too late to the party. You know, YA loves dystopia and labeling things. They love giving a label to things. And here we got oranges, we got blues, we got golds, we got whatever the hell. You know, we got tracers, we got what's the other one? The League, which I still don't really know what the League's about, which we'll get to. But it just feels like I've seen this movie 40 times in the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And it's not, again, I sound high, you know, I sound high energy right now, but it's like you said, the movie doesn't make me mad. It doesn't make me furious. It doesn't make me hate
you
life.
anything. That's the problem.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what I'm frustrated about right now. I'm frustrated that they whiffed on this young X-Men type dystopian future, and they whiffed in 100 minutes. And I don't give a shit about seeing any more of this. You know?
There's a lot you just said I want to respond to.
For sure.
But one of the things you hit on, one of the biggest problems of this movie, and there are many, but one of the biggest problems is that for a dystopian movie about what is this society like now that they've taken the remaining children after 90% of the kids in the world died. They've taken the remaining ones, put them into camps, and the rest of the adults live on, is that once we get out into the real world, we never see that world. Like you said, our main characters only visit empty rural locations, and Ruby, who's been locked up this entire time, just asks, like, well, where is everybody? Like, why aren't we seeing anyone? And there's one line of dialogue where they just say, like, well, with no kids, all the adults moved into the cities. Now, first of all, huh? Like, I'm pretty sure. Look, I don't know the exact breakdown of the world's population, but I have to imagine even if all the kids went away, all of the remaining population still would not be able to just live in the cities and entirely abandon every suburb and rural area. That makes no sense, and the movie doesn't bother explaining it. But then the movie also never takes us to those cities to show that society. And yes, I'm guessing that you said this is all like, oh, well, we're going to get to see that in a sequel, but you have to make me want to see it, so you have to give me at least a taste of it here. So that really underserves the movie. I think, to go back to your thing about the very start of this film, I was kind of my eyebrows perked up a little bit. My ears kind of caught on when just a few minutes into the movie, the president, played by the great Bradley Whitford, totally underutilized in this movie, by the way, because Bradley Whitford,
a total 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, and if you have Bradley Whitford, he should have played Ruby. I don't care, whatever. But he gives this like speech that today took on like a totally different meaning. I don't know if you kind of picked up on it, but where he's talking about like the CDC and the CDC protecting us and how we're always looking out for our children. And I was like, oh, this movie came out like today. At least they might get the benefit of it seeming like they're making some social commentary.
We now go live to President Gray.
Do you have any updates on the IAAN pandemic?
Yes, I do. First, I want to say to you that I am speaking today not as your president, but as a parent. As you know, my son is among the survivors, and for the first time, Clancy's condition has improved after his treatment at the centers. But most importantly, it has given my family hope, and I urge you to give your children that same hope. The CDC is here for you. Please turn to them for the care that your children need. This is not about politics. It's about your children. This is about our children. We will find a cure, and we will save our precious sons and daughters. Thank you.
Mr. President, everyone back, please.
So you have that, but right after that, and this is going to speak to where I agree with you about the problem with how like hyper escalated the beginning of the movie is and how quickly it like races through all these events. You know what I was thinking of actually is you and I talked about this like a few months ago when you rewatched all the Underworld movies. And I'm also a fan of the Underworld series, and one of the Underworld movies, I think it's like the fourth one, it does this big time jump, and it also does this annoying thing where at the beginning it's like, yeah, you know, since the last movie, humans found out vampires and werewolves are real, and they try to like eliminate them all, and now it's like years later, and now we're jumping into our story, and we're like, whoa, that could have been a whole movie.
Yeah,
right?
you skipped the best part.
Yeah, you skipped the best part. And like with Underworld, I don't care because it's a B movie series and it is the fourth movie, right? I mean, you could have. I mean, I do think they should have done it, but like I'm more forgiving because they have their franchise going already. This one's trying to set a franchise. It's trying to start a franchise, and it's trying to play this more seriously than Underworld ever dreamed of. You know,
right?
And I didn't really understand because the movie doesn't want to take the time to show me. Why is there such a sudden escalation to, okay, most of our kids are dead. The ones that are remaining have powers. Yes, some of them are scary, but they're still our children. But like, it's just like the reaction of all the adults is to immediately divert to jackbooted thugs, like rounding up all the kids, beating the shit out of them, putting them on buses, taking them to camps, and murdering them. And we don't see like any adults having like second thoughts about this. We don't see like any political debates about, well, I don't know, maybe because there'd be people saying, well, no, we should actually be working on like helping the kids. Like that's a more interesting movie. Like the creation of this world sounds interesting to me, and the movie's like, nah, screw that. We got to get to like Ruby in the camp, and then we got to get her out of the camp and start the adventure. But like you said, no, you have more interesting stuff here, and by racing through it, you don't make me believe this world.
Well, that's the thing. It's logical cheats, right? Like you're asking me to believe in this world, but you're forgetting that I also live in the real world, that I would ask questions like that. Like, for instance, in the very beginning of the movie, Ruby's like 10 years old, and she accidentally memory wipes herself on her birthday to her parents, okay? So then when she wakes up the next day, her mom is freaked out, doesn't know why this kid's here. Obviously, the kid has powers, calls the authorities, and they round her up. But then I'm sitting back thinking, hold on. Didn't they just have a birthday party for her last night? And I'm like, are there no decorations? Are there no pictures on the wall? Are there no photo albums? Are there no videos on their phones? You know, Ruby doesn't have the power to erase technology or change reality. She just makes them forget. So I'm thinking, well, this is a dumb cheat. Oh, I understand why. Because you just need her to get away from her parents. So you don't have to deal with those big questions that you're saying, which is the most interesting part of the narrative is shouldn't their parents be like, oh my God, we have to hide her. We don't want her to go. We don't want people to find out that Ruby is an orange, and because oranges and reds will be killed. So we have to hide her. We have to figure this out. Maybe they sacrifice themselves for her. And again, I don't know the book. So maybe the book is this stuff, but in the film that you're asking me to pay to watch and to get me geared up for 3, 4, 5 other fucking sequels, it's just, you're skipping all the meat on the bones.
Chris, you just hit on this other thing too, and we just need to address this. This is the elephant in the room. because I said the like the lack of showing us the rest of society and racing through the setup of this world were like some of the bigger problems in this film. Let me just talk about what I think is the biggest problem. And that is, this movie is built around the character of Ruby and her power as an orange. So her ability to, kind of control minds, change people's memories. And the biggest issue this movie has is that her entire power set and everything is a narrative cheat.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie to work needs you to accept that everyone Ruby encounters are complete idiots. Because she somehow spends 5 years in this camp tricking everybody in the camp, all the other kids and all the authority figures, into thinking she's a green, not an orange. And it's just like, huh? Like, I get that that's part of her power, but it's like weird because like the movie is like they suddenly come up. We cut to right when they come up with a system to like actually test the kids, and they find out she's been lying, so that's when she has to escape. But there's so many points later in the movie where she does things right in front of characters that give her power away, and the characters like don't seem to notice it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's one in particular I want to point to, and I know I don't think we're gonna jump into spoilers yet, but to me the entire end of this movie, I know you're like a rule guy.
What are the rules? Oh Christ, I'm singing again. What are the rules?
Mm-hmm. My rule sensor exploded at the end of this movie because I think the resolution of this film makes no sense when you, unlike the writers of the movie, remember what Ruby's powers are. So yeah, I think the biggest problem is they've given us a character with a power that could actually change every narrative moment in this movie in an obvious way, but because the movie has to happen, she never does those things, or they can't let that happen. So that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like the easiest way for me to say that. She is her power set and her ability to do these things is a bad focus point because the movie has to keep not letting it work like it should.
And that's the problem with a power like mind control, right? Mm-hmm. And if you go back to let's just go back to X-Men 1. Okay, X-Men 1 does a brilliant job of defining Jean Grey and Professor X. You know, they're bringing Hugh Jackman, Logan, around the mansion, and it's doing this kind of montage of showing everybody's powers. And they make, and correct me if I'm wrong, like just the way the dialogue works of how Jean Grey says about, telekinesis versus telepathy and what they can do and what they can't do and why Cerebro is needed for certain functions, and, it has to keep things in check. And if Professor X, focuses too hard on people, he will kill them, And in this movie, it's just kind of Ruby's mind control powers can be whatever she wants whenever the narrative feels like it.
What are the rules? Here we go with this. What are the rules?
Yeah.
So you're sitting there being like, well, why doesn't she just change the course of everybody's goddamn mind right now?
Well,
like, why
I mean.
doesn't she just do this?
This is what I mean. It's like the first thing I was thinking, right? Because this is what I was trying to get to. Is she's in this camp for 5 years, we learn, right? Mm-hmm. 5 or 6 years. And she's convinced them she's a green. So if people don't remember from Chris's summary, green is increased intelligence. So I'm thinking is like, in all that 5 years, didn't they have her doing things that would have required her to have increased intelligence? Mm-hmm. Like, do they have her taking any tests? And then you go, and here's how my brain works, right? And I'm not even a green, but I think of that and I go, okay, so like, let's say they gave her a test and it shows that she's just got like average intelligence. Okay, well then she could actually use her orange powers to like convince them she passed the test.
Exactly.
But then, because I'm a human being whose brain works, I go, well, wait a minute. If she can do that, why can't she also just tell them, hey, you know what? You should open the gate for me and let me out.
Yeah.
So this is what I mean, right?
Let us all out.
Everybody,
everybody put your guns down. Because that's the thing. Okay, reminder: oranges and reds are the most dangerous.
Yes.
And again, because mind control can do anything. So if you have one orange in the bunch, it will spoil the bunch. Okay, yep. And that's why they have to kill them. But one has secretly been in the camp for 5 to 6 years. How has she not just said, hey guys, we're all normal. Let us go. Put down your weapons. Kill yourselves. Let us all out. Like,
because in a certain sense, that's even what the movie ends up being about. But it waits forever to like turn that corner and say, hey, they could also do this. But I think probably every audience member is going like, yeah, we've been thinking that the whole movie. Like, why haven't they been doing that? And like another great example of that, so we can start getting into like some more plot stuff, just so people can kind of be caught up with us.
Sure.
Is so Mandy Moore plays a sympathetic doctor who works in this camp, and when the camp starts to figure out that Ruby is an orange finally because of a new test they came up with, Mandy Moore breaks her out and says, "I'm going to help you, and I work for something called the Children's League." Now, this is the thing you were talking about, where the movie does not do a good job explaining what they are, but there's some kind of resistance group that is trying to allegedly help children like fight back against this government. And so Mandy Moore helps her escape, but Ruby gets scared because when she meets up with Mandy Moore's like partner, she briefly reads his mind and sees him like kind of treating some other kids like shit, and so she worries that this is like a trap.
Mm-hmm.
So she runs away from the League and instead hooks up with our other main characters, and this is a group of escaped or just like outlaw kids. And so this is Chubbs, who is a green. He's the comic relief of the movie. He's very smart. You have Clancy, who's like Liam. Sorry, Liam is the Harris Dickinson part, right? He is what's his power? Is he a red?
He's a blue, and he's the love interest.
He's the love interest. He's a blue. So
let's repeat this and just a little just to kind of keep people along the way.
Yeah.
Because you got Liam. Liam's a blue. Chubb's a green. Zoo's a gold. Don't say yellow.
Yep.
And is that it? Oh, that's it. Yeah.
That is it. That is and Ruby. So yeah, so you have these 4 kids now, and this is where the movie heads into its like road trip period, right? So it's these 4 kids on the run in a van, and the midpoint of the movie is they are trying to they meet these other kids at a mall. This is what I was getting to. They go into a mall and there's like this like fun shopping montage, which suddenly is so weird. Like it's set to like a fun poppy song. And it's got like a completely different tone than the rest of the movie. But they are suddenly ambushed by these like militant kids, and the kids are like, once they explain like, oh no, we're just trying to get clothes or whatever. The kid's like, all right, you can stay, you can have one meal, you can spend the night, but you got to leave in the morning. And then those kids let slip that they're working for this like mysterious kid called the Slip Kid. The Slip Kid like runs like all like this like children underground, and they're like, well, where does the Slip Kid where is he? How can we find him? And these kids who live in the mall are like, well, we're not going to tell you. And Ruby like grabs the kid's hand and says, where is he? And this kid who just a moment ago said like we would never tell you tells her like this is what I know about it, right?
Yeah.
All of Ruby's friends see her do this, and I guess it is important to say she's been lying to her friends. She doesn't want them to know she's an orange because she knows how dangerous that is. She's been telling them she's a green. All of her friends watch her do that, and they still don't none of them go like, wow, that's weird. Like, why did you just answer the question? So this is what I mean. Like, this is why I kept getting annoyed, because it's like, everybody should know who she is, what she's doing.
But everybody should know anything that's going on. Like, even those kids that attack them in the mall, they're like, you guys could have been tracers. But in this world, I'm led to believe that tracers are adults. Mm-hmm. And also, when they start, fighting our main group starts using their powers as well.
Yeah.
So shouldn't this militant group stop and be like, yo, they're one of us? Like, nobody acts accordingly, which is which is frustrating.
Do the thing a normal good movie would do, right? And like when these kids like freak out and attack them in the mall, and then when they do get to like the Slip Kids headquarters, and the kids that are guards at first like fire on them with machine guns before going, oh wait, they're other kids. Why not just actually do the extra work and say, you know what? There are some kids out here who have gone bad.
Yeah.
There are like roving bands of like bad kids who are trying to kill the rest of us, and there are like dangerous kids. The movie never says that. Like all kids, we just assume are like once they realize, oh yeah, you're a kid too. Well, okay, we're all in this together, right? Yeah. But like, nah, we understand human nature. We understand how the dystopian genre is supposed to work. Some of them would be assholes, and so I'll actually buy that they're afraid of them for a moment if you just do the work and say, you know what, we've had bad encounters. The last time this happened, we let some kids into the mall and they fucking stole all of our stuff. Just say that. Mm-hmm, but the movie doesn't even want to do that.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Well, now, can we, because you mentioned tracers, can we talk about my favorite character in the movie?
The wig?
A character that is so... Okay, first of all, a character that is played by a name actor, probably one of the casting coups of this movie, I bet.
Yep.
A character so inconsequential, she is not even mentioned in the entire Wikipedia plot summary of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read the entire thing, and they never mentioned the entire subplot of this character. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to. And that is the Tracer Lady Jane, played by Gwendolyn Christie from Game of Thrones, of course, Captain Phasma from the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Why did Gwendolyn Christie do this movie? Chris, can I ask you? I mean, I know the answer is money, but like, do you think there was any part of her that was like into this character and like legit like the idea of, hey, I'm gonna play this cool character, Lady Jane, who shows up for only 2 scenes, a car chase, and then a brief moment where I attack the kids under a bridge, and then that's it. I never come back. You never see me again.
Yeah, this is like I need to talk to my agent moment. You know, like well, I was promised more. Maybe she was promised to come back in the sequel. But maybe she's on the cutting room floor. Who knows? Because the movie is only 100 minutes long. But yeah, you're right. There's 2 scenes, one car chase where she just screams and yells and gets in a car accident. And then the second one, she has like a line, and then Ruby mind controls her and tells her to walk forever. And then she walks forever. And again, the wig. The wig is so bad. It's really very bad. It's very bad. It's laughable. It's laughably
bad. It made me
bad.
appreciate Phasma more, because I've always thought she was really underserved in like the Star Wars movies. I didn't know what underserving Gwendolyn Christie was until I saw this. You know, suddenly the Phasma stuff, I was like, hey, that ain't bad, I guess. At least, you know, she had a cool fight scene, and you know, got some lines. You know, so that's nice for her. It's just less because like Brienne of Tarth was so awesome, and I feel like Gwendolyn Christie should be like Gwendolyn Christie needs like a franchise of her own, you know, and to see her keep getting these like side characters that mean nothing, and this is like obviously like the worst example because this character's nothing. And that sucks. And this is like at a time where, you know, she was definitely like, that's this is like Game of Thrones hadn't even ended yet. Like this is like heading into the last season, which is like pretty big on like everyone being really into Brienne, and they're just like, yeah, we'll give her 2 scenes, I'm sure it's fine. I don't know, it's bizarre.
Yeah, pour one out for Gwendolyn Christie, I guess.
and her career, I guess. But.
Yeah. Other like rule things that bothered me. Right before they get to the commune for gifted youngsters, did you like how it's super convenient that a certain frequency can only be heard if you're under the age of 17? So like, what happens on your birthday? Does that part of your brain just stop?
What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules? What are the rules?
Yep.
Like, it's you can't movies. Okay, if anyone listening, and I'm sure there's many of tens of you, if you're writing a movie and you write a bonehead rule in your film that says you can only listen to this frequency until you're 17 years old, you're an idiot. because you've backed yourself into a corner. There's no way out of that. You need to explain that. Why can't you just write the line, you know, most young people are only attuned to this frequency? Why do they say 17? Why do they make it super specific? It drove me crazy. And I know that's such a small part, but that is like the inciting incident for them to get to the commune. So
I would have just have fun at that point. You know you're making a bad movie. I would have had to be like, hey, how do we find out how to get to like this like secret commune? And be like, you know, well, the directions are hidden on TikTok because no adult knows what TikTok is. You know what I mean? Like just go for it. Like, or have it be like, you know, written in like a certain slang that only like certain kids get or something. You know, like yeah, the frequency thing is really stupid. Yeah. Any other rules? Because I know what I want to get to next, but if you have anything else that was like driving you crazy.
Yes, another one. Ruby, for whatever reason, throws on a red dress and goes to like flirt with Liam.
Yeah.
And then Liam's like, "What are you going to prom?" And she's like, "Yeah, I just got asked by the captain of the football team."
Where'd you get that?
And it's stupid.
No, it's been a while since I've seen a girl in a dress. Or anyone in a dress. I feel like I should ask you to prom or something.
Well, unfortunately, I'm already going with the captain of the football team, so...
Now, Trev, Wasn't she just in prison for 6 years during her formative years? How does she even know what prom is, how it works, how the logistics of this happen, why the social cues happen the way they do? She has no history of prom. Mm-hmm. She has no idea what prom would do because she went into the camp at like 9 years old.
Yeah, this is like bad tonal control on the movie, because you could argue that like maybe some of the other older kids in the camp talked about those things, and like maybe they were like, oh, I wish we could have a prom. You know what I mean? I wish we could do prom, like I'd always heard about. But the reason I can't buy into that is because on a tonal level, the minute she's out of the camp and like hooks up with this trio of other kids, they're all like too like, we're just like goofy kids on an adventure.
Yeah.
Like there's no how quickly she is like fine with these other kids, and how quickly they all bond and are just like the good time gang in this crazy, horrible dystopian world where all adults want to murder them. That this movie can't find a consistent tone. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like, I think this movie either needs to be like really grim or really ridiculous, like really satirical. And it's not doing either of those with enough consistency. And so that's why that like prom thing doesn't work, because it's like trying to be like cute and funny. But you're like, you're not really in a cute and funny situation here, and like you shouldn't really know what the heck you're talking about.
Well, and especially when you missed your formative years, like that's the big part of it. The age of 10 to 16, she missed completely, but yet she's got an incredible fashion sense. She is totally attuned to just modern life now. There's nothing. Again, it goes back to what we were saying about how this movie's all skeleton and no meat, because if you're in an internment camp for 6 years lying and supposedly, mind controlling people to cover your tracks, how in the world do you adjust to being free? So like in 10 minutes. Yeah. And it just doesn't connect it. My rule alarm goes off, but also just my logical rule, but just my everyday rule goes off. I'm like, she should be like having trouble, peeling a fucking banana. You know what I mean? Like, I have no idea what's going on.
The movie is like shockingly disinterested in that kind of like interpersonal and like interior character drama and conflict. Like one of the best examples of that is when her friends finally find out she is an orange. Like when she finally uses her powers in a way where they all see it. Mm-hmm. She like wakes up and she hears them saying like, we gotta get rid of her. We gotta move on without her. And she's like, yeah, of course, because now they're scared of me. So she walks out and she's like, don't worry. Like I heard you, I'm going to take off. And they're like, hey idiot, we were talking about the van. We need to get rid of our van. It's too recognizable. We're cool with you. And so like I know what the movie's trying to do there. The movie's trying to have this like nice message, like, yeah, see, all kids are cool with each other. It's fine. Like they still accept her even though she's an orange. But like, why not play that up a little bit? Why not have one member of the group be like, hey, you were lying to us for like the past 4 days that we've been together. That sucks. Like why weren't you just honest from the beginning? And yes, your powers are scary, or your powers make us more of a target. Like, geez, have one person in the group. So that we can have drama. But the movie does like that. The movie is like not interested. The movie's like, no, they're all friends. It didn't matter. She didn't need to lie this whole time. Like what? Like that's yeah. So this movie always takes like the easy way out. And speaking of that kind of development, I will say, so I was watching this movie, and I was thinking about how everything in it is just like so trope heavy, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like this is every YA movie I've seen like put into a blender. And there actually was a moment though where her and Liam like are out in a field and they like come close to like kissing for the first time, or I think they do kiss or whatever, right? And I did actually have a moment there where I thought, you know what? One of the things I'll give this movie is that there's no love triangle. It's just she meets Liam, they're kind of like instantly into each other. I was like, that's kind of cool. There's no love triangle. Then we meet Slip Kid. And I was like, never mind. The love triangle is here, baby. We can't have a YA movie without the love triangle. So the notion of this movie, and this is what I want to ask you, Chris. And so here we're going. I'm going to spoiler territory, folks. So if you're really worried about us spoiling this piece of shit movie that you're never going to watch anyways, they meet Slip Kid, and Ruby is under the assumption that she is the only remaining orange. That's why she's so, like hunted, and why she's so dangerous. She believes the government has killed every other orange, and there's nobody else like her. And then they finally meet Slip Kid, who is the kid who is like running this underground, railroad of children's, and it turns out he's like the son of the president. who, in the news, it's always been the president is always like, it's been like this propaganda news story where he said, we actually cured my son. My son doesn't have his powers anymore. We cured him, and we're working on finding a way to do that to the rest of the kids. And then they meet Slipkid, and it's him. It's like, it's President Gray's son, and he's like, no, I was never cured. That was a lie. Of course my dad was lying. And instead I'm trying to like help all these kids. And he's like, and I'm an orange too. I'm an orange. Ruby, you're an orange. I'm gonna help you try to like learn your powers. And so this sets up, our brief little love triangle where, oh, Ruby has found someone like her. So now Liam is like worried because he's like, I can't match up to another orange,
Yeah.
But Chris, I want to ask you, and this is where I'm sorry I'm about to spoil it. Was there a split second where you didn't think he was going to turn out to be bad?
No, not even
The
a little
meet
bit.
him, you're like, like, oh, there's our villain.
He even
There-
looks
there he is.
evil. Like he looks evil.
Yeah, they like cast him like he looks like the jock boyfriend in, like a John Hughes movie,
Yeah, he's immediately shady. He's immediately weird. Again, when they go to this commune, it's like it's too easy. Like it's too. Everybody's guard is too down. I find it just like that's the weird thing too, because there's a glimpse that Chubbs is because of his super intelligence is a little weirded out by this commune. Okay. But that doesn't take a fucking superpower to realize that.
No.
Which is another thing. And I don't know the book, so no disrespect to Alexandra Bracken, but that's a weird power to be thrown into this group of, again, telekinesis, electricity, fire, mind control. And guess what? You can do math really, really well. I just don't really get
now, did
that.
you read that apparently Chubbs in the book was not a green. He was a blue. He was another blue. Yeah.
Yes.
They decided to make him green. They said for like, first of all, just so like the group had like one of everybody almost, except for a fire, a red. But also they thought he would be funnier if he was like green, so that he could like make these humorous observations.
Okay.
And Chris, I want to read you a line that the movie treats as a laugh line, and I want you to explain this line to me. Shortly after they've gotten to the camp, Ruby's walking around and she sees Chubb sitting on a dock. And she goes up to him and he says, "Yeah, you caught me staring at a lake. I've officially become my grandma." And Ruby laughs. And I think the movie is like, "Ha, that's funny, right?" And I was like, "What? Like, what? I don't get it. Do you get it?"
No, I don't get it. Because olds look at lakes? I'm not sure.
I guess.
I don't really get it. And I'm just like spitballing here too. Like you said, like everybody's one of these colors except for red. How much better would it be if we had another liar in the group? Like let's say Chubbs, the green super intelligence guy, which we actually don't see him do his powers at all in the movie. I don't think his eyes glow once. I'm not sure. But let's just keep it, that he's very smart and the whole time he's tricking these guys. And then at the last second, guess what? It turns out he's a fucking red.
Yeah.
That'd be badass. That'd be sweet.
Would it be hilarious if at the end of the movie you found out that there was just no such thing as greens? Like all these kids have always been, yeah, I'm super smart.
just to not be killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just a weird power. I don't know. I just don't really get it. I don't really get it. Like what you see this group of teenagers walking up to you with abacuses and stuff, and you're just like, oh, what am I gonna do? We gotta kill them. I just don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I mean, like even like an X-Men, when you have, like you said, because like obviously X-Men is a clear parallel to this. When you have characters in X-Men who are like their mutation involves like advanced intelligence, they do that in a way that makes sense. When you have like a character like Forge who can invent anything, right?
Yeah.
So like that's what like you could have Chubbs doing the whole movie is like making things for them that help them out of predicaments or something. Because like just saying he's super smart doesn't matter if he never says anything that's smart, which he doesn't. And for a comic relief character, I'm sorry, he's just also not funny. Like I never smirked, or I definitely never laughed, but I never even like smirked or like I never even did a little like haha, that's nice. Like I just did nothing for anything.
Well, maybe that's what maybe that is in line with this character. He's like super dork, so it's like he's just painfully unfunny.
Or maybe I'm not smart enough to get his humor. That's the thing. Maybe
Also
that's
true.
the thing. Like maybe that's like a genius joke they want about the lake, and like you and I are too dumb. Like we just don't get it.
I know when you said the line there was like one listener of ours just fell over on their chair or just crashed their car into a pole because they were laughing so hard.
Yeah. Can we talk about the ending? Or,
just real quick, did you get reminiscent when Liam passed the Twinkie with his mind to Ruby? Were you thinking like I was of Anakin and the pair?
No, you know what I was thinking with the when the Twinkie came up was I was wondering if that was like a zombie world, like or sorry, Zombieland kind of like reference, with a like dystopian thing. It's like, hey, do people liked when the Twinkie was in Zombieland, so maybe we'll have that. But
I also find it funny when he was just doing like, what you see Liam do is just like menial tasks with his telekinesis. Like, you know, like again, like passing Twinkies and this and that. And I was thinking, at first I was like, oh, that's lame. But then I was like, that's probably what I'd be doing too. I would never get up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like the one that I actually kind of liked was when he was using his power to like take like the nuts and bolts out of the tire when he's changing the tire. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I like that, and I also did like the whole like getting her to dance with him. And he pretends to throw a lasso and then reels her in. That was cute. That was cute.
I liked. It's a good visual. It's a little bit like I did have a thought like, oh, what about consent, buddy? You know.
I mean, she wanted it.
Oh no, we have to scrap this episode.
No. I did like the visual, and it looked good too, like the actual wire work.
Well, and that's the kind of scene too, because like that happens at a dance at the compound, and like I wish that scene was cooler because it is one moment you go, hey, this is like one night where kids are actually acting like kids. And I do think, again, that's like missing in this movie. Like I know we get like the weird, like I said, like bizarre like mall shopping scene, which as much as I don't like that part because it does stick out like a sore thumb, I guess that's probably the reason it sticks out like a sore thumb, because the movie doesn't have enough of that. These kids are all so adult, and I get that that's like, the world's made them into adults, but like, isn't that supposed to be sad? Like, aren't we supposed to be sad that they are like, they have to be so like militarized and like on their guard all the time? That like, whenever they get to like be kids, that should be like sweet and like funny and amusing. And like, the movie never like slows down for that. Like, that whole dance sequence actually should have been, that's like a point where one of my favorite things about this movie was that it was only 100 minutes, but that's actually like a moment where you should allow the movie to like kind of grind to a halt for a moment and be like, you know what? Let's just do a lot of character stuff here. Let's show people like flirting with each other. Let's see Chubbs being like an idiot, like at this dance party. Let's see how like how Zoo, who doesn't talk at all, she's a mute. She's the electricity girl. Let's see how she kind of interacts with the other people here. But it doesn't do that. Like, it only concentrates on Liam and Ruby, and it's like, that's too bad. Like, let's see these kids fucking, they're finally having fun, you know? Like, let's get into that.
Well, that's the weird part, is the movie is it's equal parts rushed and slow. It's like a magic trick they pulled off. Like, I was like, oh wow, this is a breakneck pace that it doesn't stop to smell the roses, but also please finish this movie now. You know, like I was at odds with myself while watching it.
Well, speaking of that, I gotta finally talk about the ending of this movie.
Sure, go ahead.
Because, and I'm gonna steal your bit, Chris, because I know you're like the rules guy.
Okay, sounds good.
So it's finally revealed that Clancy is evil, and this is like obviously the big sequel setup. Clancy, the son of the president. It turns out that he's actually like in charge of the government now. His orange powers are so like prominent and powerful. He like. It's kind of insinuated he like put his dad into like a coma, right? And like he's basically taken over the entire military and the government. They work for him. And to what end? That's never really made clear. It's just like he's kind of like generically evil. He's like, I was mistreated, so I'm going to just take over the world. And he basically wants Ruby to join him because she's the other orange. So he's going to either like seduce her onto his side, or he's just going to use his own powers to kind of like get her to be on his side. And then the two of them together will be able to turn everybody into like their army, essentially. And that is discovered. And obviously we have our big action climax, which, by the way, is not the climax of the movie. It's like the beginning of the third act is like the big action climax. And there's like way too much stuff after this action climax. So you have like the big battle between Ruby and Clancy, like in like the secret hideout of all these kids. And there's stuff where like the army shows up and she's like getting some of the army to like work for her. And he's using his powers to have the army like work for him. And this is like where it should be cool, but as we said, this movie is like kind of surprisingly always visually uninteresting coming from an animation director. I'll never really understand like why this movie looks so flat and boring.
I will say it does seem like they saved every single penny for
that is a part of it.
Yeah, and like the fire effects look good, and I did like the whole when they get the jump on the commune and they have actually like 5 or 6 reds on their team, and they like drop down and they're kind of like cool, like little, you know, agents, in a weird way, like attack dogs, but then they're dispatched of in like a second, so that was annoying.
It was the kind of thing where, like, because not only is this movie coming too late in like the YA cycle, but it's also coming after like over a decade of just superhero movies being the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
That like you're not going to impress or surprise anybody with kids using the same superpowers that we've seen so much already for the last decade plus. And so I mean, I think maybe even the film was like, well, that's not why we're trying to placate the fans of the books who are here more for like the character drama and not like the action. But you should try to serve both audiences in a movie. Please consult me next time you make one of these, 20th Century Fox or Disney. So anyways, so we have that Ruby gets away. Like Clancy is not killed; he's left alive to be the villain in the rest of the series, I'm sure. But Ruby gets away, and Chubbs gets injured in like an explosion. And because she doesn't know how to help him, she takes out the little like signal, like locator tracker thing that Mandy Moore gave her earlier in the movie. And all of her friends have been saying, we got to avoid the League. We don't know what the League's up to. They say they're trying to help kids. We don't trust them. But she's like, well, Chubbs is dying. I don't know what to do. So she presses the button. Mandy Moore and her friends show up and take all of them to like the League headquarters. And there we find out that maybe they were kind of right about the League, because the League basically wants to use them as soldiers. Says we want to kind of be like the good Clancys. We want you to all be soldiers, and we want you to join our army, train the kids we do have to go up against the government. And Ruby does not like this idea. She is like, well, I'm really worried about you using Liam as a soldier. Like Liam's already been through enough. I don't want him to be a soldier. Will you if and that's who they want. They really want Liam because they really want, he's like a super powerful telekinetic. And she says, if you let Liam go, I'll be your soldier. Like, that's the deal I'll make with you. I'll give up like my freedom to be like your general if you'll just let Liam go. But Ruby, so this is what I'm getting to. I'm finally getting to my point here. Ruby realizes that Liam will not leave if she's still there because he loves her too much. So she, now having learned full control over her powers thanks to Clancy, she now knows how to like erase people's minds. She did it as like an accident when she was a kid with her parents. But she goes in and she kisses Liam and removes all of his memories of her, so that he doesn't remember her anymore. That's the sacrifice she makes. And then he kind of comes to and he goes, who are you? You're just some like 17-year-old girl. Why are you working for them? They're bad. And she's like, well, you're free to go. Like, you don't have to stay. And he's like, okay, well, I'm out of here. And then the movie ends with her going out and putting like orange paint on her head and showing that she's going to now lead the armies for the League. And that's our sequel set up. All right, Chris, let me ask you a very important question here.
Okay.
And I'm guessing this question came up in your mind as you watched the movie. If she can erase her memories of herself from Liam, why doesn't she just erase Mandy Moore and the other guys' memories of her and Liam and both leave?
Because you got 2 other books, man.
It's insane. It's insane that they did not think the audience would just immediately go like, wait a minute. She could like make the entire League like forget her.
Yeah.
She could make the entire League forget that they're the League. Like she could make them all say like, yeah, we don't need to do this. Like the fact that her only solution is I'll just take like the one happy thing in my life and erase it, instead of just going like, oh, actually I could solve all of this like just as easily as I just did that. It's nonsense. Like the movie's already bad, but it like officially breaks right there. I know it's the very end, but that's the point where you're like, like you don't deserve sequels after that, because you've broken the movie's like biggest logical rule right there.
Yeah, that, and also like she erases Liam's memory of her, but what about the other group members? You know, and I know, like Chubbs is hurt right now, so he'll get better in the next movie. And I know Zoo is off with, some other people, but she'll come. The whole idea they'll all become a reunion, at one point. But what's Liam? Because Liam knows about Chubbs. What's stopping Liam from just going to find Chubbs? Because he knows he's at a hospital. Goes there and is like, hey, what are we doing now? And Chubbs is like, well, do you know where Ruby is? Right? Okay, we're back in the same place. like all they need to do is just have a 2-second conversation. So yeah, you're right. Why does she not just wipe everybody's mind that is a potential threat? And the answer is because we want more movies.
Yeah,
and
because if we don't get those cool final shots of Clancy on Air Force One looking out over the military and her in a football stadium, with an army of kids around her, then we don't go, man, I can't wait for Darkest Minds 2 coming in 2021. Oh, nope, the pandemic pushed it to 2022. But obviously we never had to worry about that anyways. So
Yeah, it's I think about this a lot. Like these movies are made by so many people. So many people. And we talk about this in the show all the time, and but these movies are made by probably 1,000 people. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say 100 people are really involved in the creative, like big time involved. That's like the head costume designer, the heads of the departments, let's say. And they're all putting this movie together. And not a single person says, hey, doesn't our main character have fucking mind control?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes me so mad about movies like this. Again, the movie itself didn't make me angry, but I think the production decisions or lack thereof make me the most angry. Because why do we keep seeing movies or narrative choices like this where two dumb idiots recording a podcast for 10 people realize how dumb this is and how it's so painfully obvious? And they do it twice. The very beginning of the movie and then the very end of the movie. So it's like Ruby's an idiot. My main character is, I don't want to get behind this character. She's a dum-dum. I don't want to follow her into battle.
Yeah, no, she's a dum-dum, and all her friends are dum-dums for not realizing that she's not, that she is a dum-dum. There's no characters to get behind in this. Like, the character I want to like the most is Mandy Moore because she's, like, pretty. but totally. she's also in only a couple scenes, So it's like, I don't, and also the movie ends and you're still not sure if you're supposed to, like them or trust them.
Well, and that's what I mean about, way earlier in the episode I said about the League is just not well defined. Mm-hmm. And I understand that they want to maybe keep it somewhat of a mystery, like a will they, won't they, of like, are they bad or are they good? But you have to tell me as the viewer, if you want Ruby to second guess the League for the next 2.5 movies, that's fine. But you, movie, have to tell me, the viewer, that, oh, this is the drama. The drama is watching Ruby navigate this situation. But instead, I'm sitting here like, why do I care? I don't know what's going on. I don't know who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. My main character is an idiot. Maybe she deserves to be in a camp. I have no idea. Like, this is so dumb. So,
yeah, I mean, it's clearly what it's aiming for is like the Hunger Games thing, right? Where it's like, oh, well, the movie starts and you think like, oh, President Snow down Sutherland, like that government is so evil, and then Katniss gets like wrapped up into this like revolutionary force led by Julianne Moore as President Coin. And that series is like actually very smart and very deep, and it gets into this big thing where you find out, oh, President Coin sucks too, and she wants to like use Katniss as like a propaganda figure, and they're fine with like sending kids on like terrorist death missions, and it's like, and then you go like, oh, these movies are about how like war sucks, like neither side is right, and Katniss is like realizing the entire like fallacy of this entire kind of system. And like that's what this movie like I think wants to do, but it has no idea how to get that message across, because you have to, like you said, you have to like give me a little bit at the end of the movie. How am I supposed to feel about the League in any way? Like, am I supposed to be apprehensive about them? Am I supposed to like them? Am I not supposed to like them? I can't feel any way at all. And like, it's not. This movie could be so satirical. This movie could be saying something about the way the government doesn't care about kids. Like, we've seen that as a big conversation right now. I know, like. At the time this movie came out, school shootings were obviously a big thing as well. Obviously, it's gotten even worse, because it always does. But like, when there's so much discussion about how like certain political parties and representatives just don't care about what's happening to kids in school, like, imagine if this movie had like the balls to like dive into that,
Trev, this movie opens up with a kid just dying at school, and then it has a scene where military people with large guns gun down a group of children. And I was sitting there being like, wow, like this is big yikes, especially right now. And then just thinking like how that's loaded imagery, but this movie is way too surface level and lacks any type of depth to even think about that concept. Instead, it's got to rush along. It's got to rush along. We got to run across this field. We got to get to this bounty hunter with the bad wig. We got to do this. We got to do that. We got to get to the commune. We got to have a dance party. It's like, whoa. You just showed me many children getting gunned down with a machine gun. Let's sit with that for a bit. Especially Ruby, because she saw it. Like, that's Ruby's. We're watching as the viewer Ruby's memory of that. Like she's brought that vision to us as the audience. That's loaded imagery. Let us sit with that. Let us think about it. Let's discuss it. But no, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. We gotta make a joke about the lake.
Yeah. Yeah, no, ultimately any like interesting, compelling, and, thought-provoking messages we could have is completely brushed aside in favor of just going, this needs to be like the other YA movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need like this two sexy boys vying for her attention. We need, isn't it fun when people have powers? Like, that's what the movie is like more interested in. And that's unfortunate. Because like I said, this is a movie about a world that pretty quickly decided to murder all of their children or round them up and put them into camps. And this is where I say, like, for whatever you might think of the Hunger Games movies, like, I know there's always been some pushback from people who are like, it's just like, it's PG, Battle Royale or whatever. But like, watch this movie and then you'll see like how smart what the Hunger Games was doing. Like that's when a series actually has some thought put behind it and it's actually saying something. Like I think of that moment in the first Hunger Games movie where Woody Harrelson's character Hamish is in the Capitol and he's watching the two little kids like play Hunger Games like with their fake swords and like murder each other, and you see that look in his face and he's like, oh my, how sick this is. Like we're making these kids like celebrate these other kids killing each other for our entertainment. It's like that's deep, man, and that's like a YA movie. So it can be done, and this movie is like, nah. Like that's why it's frustrating.
Just give me a couple scenes of the outside world living with this catastrophe. Just one scene.
Yep.
That's it. It one scene changes the movie. It doesn't change it like a ton, but if you have one scene of her parents dealing with, holy shit, like they're rounding up all the kids, isn't that crazy? Like that enough. I just need somebody to recognize what's happening. And there's a moment in the movie where you think you're gonna get that. There's an older couple that sees Ruby and Liam when they're having that prom discussion, and right away, what does Ruby do? She mind controls them to just go away. And it's like, well, this could have been interesting. Maybe are they going to be nice to them? Are they going to be like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on with the world right now. Come with us. Let's try to protect you. Or are they going to fucking whip out pistols and just try to kill these kids? That is an interesting narrative. There's something deep. There's a theme there.
Yeah, because we want some adults that aren't in the League, aren't tracers, or aren't soldiers, right? Yeah. And that's what that couple could have been. Like, what is like the average Joe Schmo America out there think about all this? Like you said, that would be cool. How does this, like, almost every movie has like a movie that like I saw recently, and I know you did too, neither of us liked, and we're going to talk about it someday in here. It's the recent Firestarter.
Yeah.
Another movie that just felt like so like uninspired, right? But even that movie had the smarts to be like, hey, whenever you do one of these movies with like people on the run, they should meet up with some like regular person and like stay with them for like a little bit, so that you can like get a discussion and like really like reveal some character stuff, but also show like what the world thinks of this. Like Firestarter, that movie sucked and it did that. This movie can't even take the time to slow down for that. So,
I mean, I got nothing else to say about this one.
No, I guess so. To wrap this up, I will say. I don't think any of this is like on the cast. This is like a movie that is the problems with this movie really are because they're all like child actors, which is always kind of shaky. But I'd say they're fine.
Yeah, they're fine.
This is a movie that is just broken on like a script level, and surprisingly enough, given the director's like accolades, just so unengaging on a directorial level. But it is interesting that the two leads have survived this quite well. Harris Dickinson, who plays Liam, he was recently like the lead in The King's Man, the third Kingsman movie. And has he's appeared in a few things since then. But and Amandla Stenberg, who by the way, we mentioned she played Rue. We didn't mention that she had some other YA credit even before this because she was also in Everything and The Hate U Give, two other like YA like drama movies. But she is about to apparently have like a very, very big moment because she has been cast as the lead in one of the upcoming Star Wars Disney Plus series, the Acolyte. which is one of those series we don't really know too much about, except isn't she going to be like a Sith acolyte in that? Isn't that the idea? Or
I'm not sure. I think everything is all rumor based right now. I know it's supposed to be like 1,000 years before everything.
Of course, because they're only going backwards now.
Yeah. Well, good for her. I hope it works out.
Yeah.
Just don't Boba Fett her, and it'll be good.
Yeah, like I haven't been super into the last couple Star Wars shows, but hopefully that one's good, and she can use her orange powers to erase her memory of being in this movie. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to say this. I just hope I don't want to be so down on the YA genre, and I just think it needs 10 years. I think all these things need to just go away for 10 years, or what they do is just go to streaming. Drop these things as series if you want to spend your time. I think YA novels are best suited for maybe a limited series thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was even thinking that watching this, and I bet you did too, at least once, like during this runtime, where I was thinking like, this isn't a movie, this is a pilot.
Yeah,
this is a pilot episode, and not like a good pilot episode, but I mean, like, but still, like, it feels more pilot than movie, because there is really only like 2 action sequences, only one that's kind of big, right? And it just has the energy level of like, this is like made for TV. This, because that's why, like, I don't want to keep harping on this, but it is. I do find this is the kind of movie that makes you appreciate really, really, really unbelievably bad movies. Right? Like, I can like get mad at you, and you and I can argue because I think Wild Wild West is like so bad and so ridiculous, and you think it's okay. But at the same time, I can be like, well, there's a movie that is like interesting in its badness and it was like taking weird swings that I don't think it worked at. But this movie isn't like taking any swings.
No.
And that's why I said earlier, and I'm going to reiterate it. I honestly, when I watch a movie like this, my mind starts wandering, and I try to put myself in that movie set, and I go, how depressing was this set? Because don't you feel like everybody there just must have been like, yeah, it's a living, it's a it's a 9 to 5, like we're just doing the work, and so like that's like the bummer of it. I can't remember what point I was initially making with this, but yeah, that's why the movie kind of bums me out. And I don't think, it was the pilot thing. This movie felt like it has the energy level of people who feel like we just got to make this because we're making the next one next week. Like that's how it felt. Like that has, like when you watch like a lame bad TV show, and it's just like, we just got to get through this episode. We'll try again next week. It doesn't feel like anybody was like, we're making a big 20th Century Fox franchise starting movie.
Well, I'm noticing that just across the board with a lot of media. This is a big conversation, obviously, and we could probably talk for another 90 minutes about this conversation. So we'll be brief, but it's like right now it genuinely feels like there's no passion or vision with 95% of the content that's coming out.
Right. And the fact that you said content is very important there.
Yes, and that's the issue with me. I'm becoming very astutely aware of the corporate drivel that's being spoon-fed to me. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, I think there's some good stuff within the corporate drivel. I'm not such a fucking hater, but I'm aware of it. I'm not living in this blissful ignorance that it's just rainbows and lightsabers. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm just kind of aware. I'm noticing it. It's on to the next. We got to get this product out because we got to get the shareholders happy and we got to keep the streamers alive. And I don't know. It's becoming, maybe I'm just getting older, more surly, or things are getting worse. All three of those can be right at the same time. But I just feel The Darkest Minds is one of those products. This was, like you said, this was every single YA trope put into a blender and onto the blandest canvas and marketed to me.
This movie is absolutely emblematic of what you were just saying. This was a movie where a studio, in this case 20th Century Fox, said, hey, Hunger Games was popular. Divergent was popular enough. They didn't get to finish their series, but they got a couple sequels. We need one of those.
Yeah.
We need one of those. What books are available? Oh, that book sells pretty well. Buy that one. Go make it. And I feel like everybody got attached and everyone's just told like, hey, these are still popular enough. and then everyone's like, okay, I guess. And like,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was like, yeah, Darkest Minds. I just think everybody was like, yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense on a business level, and unfortunately, that's what everything is. So maybe it's actually sadly appropriate that like this is like one of the last 20th Century Fox movies before Disney bought it, and also maybe it's sadly appropriate that Amanda Stenberg is going into the Star Wars Disney
Machine.
Plus world. Yeah, because it's just all one big package now, and maybe that's why they cast her. They're like, hey, she was like really boring in Darkest Minds, so maybe she can be boring for us in The Acolyte. You know.
And again, maybe The Acolyte will be great. Maybe it will.
I hope so. I want all of them to be good.
Yes,
but
I'm very aware when they're not.
Yeah.
That's how I'll say it like that. That's what I'll say. Yeah. Anyway, that'll do it for The Darkest Minds. Next episode, we are grand finale of Summer Surprise Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at 1991's V.I. Warchowski. Yeah, I've never seen this, so I'm looking forward to an early 90s movie, honestly.
Yeah, early 90s starring Kathleen Turner, based on a series of books. I think it's like a detective story. Yeah, I've never seen it either, so yeah, I'm excited.
So yes, follow along at F2F Pod. That's at F2, the number 2F Pod, on all the socials. Like us there, like us everywhere. Also, rate, review, whatever you do. That'd be great. Throw us a star rating, whatever you deem appropriate. And just join the tribe, hit that subscribe, and follow along with us, because we keep pimping it after the end of every Summer Surprise episode that we've been doing, but you guys are going to love what we have in store for, honestly, quite in the extended theme months, let's say. So keep on with us.
I'm getting very excited for it. I think it's going to be a blast. So, yeah.
Cool.
So hopefully V.I. Warchowski doesn't kill us, because we got to get through that. Yep.
I did like what you said about, Darkest Minds, like, I guess. Like, that should be the name of the title of the movie. The Darkest Minds, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to end it in a better way? I don't know. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't think of anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We always need a clever ending. So
That's true. I might cut that.
It's not like the movie wasn't clever. So like, why should we do any work that they didn't do?
Yeah.
I mean, we could. Maybe I should have asked you. Chris, we forgot. Does this movie pass the dread test?
Sneak attack. It does.
Yeah, no, I recommend it.